It is here, probably the biggest Magic game since 2011, maybe 2012. I'll give them 2012. It's been a long time since Magic played a game of this magnitude. How the Magic forced Game 7 at the Kia Center. Let's dive into it. It's time for Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is May 2nd as I'm recording. This will be May 3rd, 2024. My name is Philip Rossman-Reich. I'm the senior writer over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You, of course, find me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, it is all game. So if it's May 5th and you're listening to this, you're probably too late. Or maybe not, actually. May 5th, it may still work, depending on what happens. It's time for Game 6. How the Orlando Magic extend this series, send it back to Cleveland for a Game 7, make my travel concerns a nightmare. Scheduling a flight the same day is not going to be fun. But we'll talk about how the Magic win Game 6 and make that all a reality. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day, no matter when you listen to us, whether it's first in the morning, whether it's right when we upload. We truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. Remember, there's a great Locked On podcast covering every single team in the NBA. Just search for Locked On and the team you're looking for, the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Just like JB Bickerstaff will do, we're going to call a timeout here real fast because we got to talk more about Monopoly Go. This fast-paced game lets you team up with friends for tournaments to unlock awesome prizes like unique stickers for trading, cool playing pieces, and hilarious emojis for taunting your friends. So download Monopoly Go now, free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. So we are here. We have played this Cleveland Cavaliers team 5 times. We know the battle lines. We know the rhythm of how these games go. You know, it's been fun to be in a playoff series that the Magic can actually win. Let's taking a step back before we dive into the nitty gritty here. It's the Magic have not been in a playoff series that they can win realistically since 2011, since that series against the Hawks. So that's why I will say this is probably the most important game the Magic have played since 2011. No offense to the 2019 team, no offense to the 2020 team, no offense to the 2012 team, the We All We Got team. Love that group. They played their hearts out. Same as 19, same as 20, but this is different. This feels different. And so there's a lot on the line here. Like, no getting around it. There is a lot at stake as the Magic play Game 6. And like I said, at this stage of the series, I am probably not going to say something that I haven't already said at some point during the last week and a half, 2 weeks. We know what the Cavs are about. The Cavs know what we're about as the Magic. We all know how these games go and what's going to be important. And so really, I'm going to give you some numbers from the series and we'll talk a little bit about a few keys here. But, you know, I'm going to reduce everything down to this is just going to come down to execution. Just like Game 5 did, it's going to come down to whether the Magic make their shots, whether the Magic run their plays, whether the Magic reduce their turnovers, whether the Magic play with more physicality, grit, energy, all that stuff that we can't quantify, but we know it when we see it. This is a series between two fairly evenly matched teams, two teams that are very flawed in significant ways. Boston, I credit Boston. Jarek White said these are two good teams, but we are not the Boston Celtics. This is a matchup between two teams that are very capable of winning this series. This still feels like a coin flip series, and obviously a road team has not won yet in the series, so it still feels like anybody's game. And Friday is going to be that way too. So without further ado, to me, this is the most important key to Game 6. It is something that I'm going to have a hard time defining, but I'm going to tell you some examples and some numbers to tell you what this is. The key to Game 6 is tempo, not pace. It's not about possessions. It's about tempo. Who is in control of the tempo of the game? Who is in control of how fast or how slow the two teams play? That, to me, is the ultimate deciding factor in how game 6 is going to play out. So let me explain this a little bit more. Now, obviously, we look at that pace number on NBA.com/stats, and that tells you possessions per 48 minutes. The Magic, throughout the course of the year, were a very slow pace team. They're actually a very poor transition team at that. But we are dealing here in a series with two teams who are excellent on defense, going up against a half-court defense against either Orlando or Cleveland is not good. And that's why we've seen a lot of low scores. Both the Magic and the Cavs defense have shown up this series. I know the Magic have missed a lot of shots. Cleveland's missed a lot of shots. And that's a credit both to the defenses on both sides, as well as just maybe everyone's just kind of cold right now. Every bit of rhythm in the half court has been disrupted. And that is what you expect in a series with two of the best defensive teams in the league. These are two top 10 defenses. I am very proud because I was a little bit skeptical that the Magic's defense would carry over into the playoffs in the way that it has. The Magic's defense has been awesome. Cleveland's defense has been very good too, but the Magic's defense has been awesome, covering up a lot of the Magic's shortcomings, frankly, on offense in a way that I don't necessarily believe it has for Cleveland. Orlando's offense has been worse than Cleveland's, but Cleveland's offense hasn't been good either. So to beat a defense that is so good, you've got to put the defense in compromised positions. You've got to make the defense make difficult choices and be a little disorganized, because if they're organized, they're getting a stop. And the best way to do that is to push the tempo, is to try and get into your offense. It's not necessarily about fast break points, but that is a factor, is to get into your offense, then the defense can set up. And that's exactly what happened in Game 5. In Game 5, the Cavaliers made it a point. They were very, very intentional about this, of getting out in transition and pushing the pace off misses, off turnovers, getting out in fast breaks. Here is your stat of the series. The team with more fast break points is 4-1 in this series. The only game where the team with more fast break points lost was in Game 1. The Magic outscored Cleveland 18-12 in fast break points. In Game 5, the Cavs scored 19 fast break points to the Magic 7. Again, with the smaller lineup, Cleveland was looking to push the tempo a little bit. They were spreading the floor out a little bit more, three-point shooters. There's a few more lanes to get into the paint than there were when the two bigs were in. Cleveland took advantage of that. They hit, Max Strus finally hit some threes. Darius Garland finally had a good game. That was big. In the Magic's 2 wins, the Magic had 22 fast break points in Game 3. They had 4 of their 12 fast break points in Game 4. And again, they won fast break points in that game. All of this is just kind of a hint that if you play with a little bit of speed, if you get down the court, and obviously the Magic were really bad scoring in transition. They're like 2 for 7, I think, on fast break points in Game 5. Being able to score in transition is absolutely vital to winning this series. You gotta, Jamal Mosley's talked about this a lot. This series has been about possessions. Can you make the most of your possessions? Can you steal extra possessions through turnovers, through offensive rebounds? Being able to get second or early cracks at the basket before this defense gets set, frankly, that has been the series. And you'd expect Cleveland to have an advantage in that because Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland are guards. They can push the tempo a little bit more. They got more shooters that can spread the floor. It's been fairly even on that front, obviously. Orlando's has won fast break points 3 of the 5 games, or 2-1 in those games. And so what these numbers tell you is, in order to do the things that both teams want to do offensively, it starts with how quickly they get into their offense, what coaches usually describe as pace. I'm going to call it tempo. And again, it's something that I don't think there's a single number that represents tempo. Fast break points isn't necessarily tempo, but it's who's in control. If you're playing tug of war, who's the one pulling the other team closer to them? That's what we're talking about here. And so when you look at all the numbers, Magic scored 48 and 52 points in the paint in their 2 wins. They've been under 40 points in the paint in their 3 losses. That is a big factor in this series as well. Orlando's got to continue to find ways to get space to attack downhill, especially if they can do so before Jared Allen and Evan Mobley get set. That was one of the things the Magic did well in the fourth quarter as they came back and nearly won that game. Obviously, Mobley had the big block in game 5, but it all starts with playing fast. It all starts with getting to the rim, getting to the paint, flattening that defense, spreading that defense out, making the defense cross-match and get confused. It's all about getting into that offense quicker. The quicker you do it, the better chance you have to score in this series. So when we look at game 6, we start with tempo. Whatever, however you want to call it. I'm going to call it tempo. We start with tempo. And if the Magic play with the right tempo, they will have a very good chance at winning game 6. One of the big factors in the series, though, has been the first quarters. We'll talk about a punch-first mentality that will be necessary to win and why I'm concerned about the first quarter more than anything else in game 6. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, it's time for a quick word for our friends over at Monopoly Go. We're at the mandatory timeout. Refs have called us off to our corners. We're going to take a little bit of a pause to talk more about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying. We've talked about this a lot. We're gonna review it. We're gonna take a quick review here, make sure that it's time to do it. It is indeed time to talk about Monopoly Go because there's just so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for time tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock, and there is so much to get. Unique stickers you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko machine. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go, so get off the bench and go download it now free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. We want to thank you for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. Be sure to check out the Locked On Sports Day 24/7 streaming channel. It's a free streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without the screaming and shouting you get on the national TV shows. Instead of like that sports radio stuff, you get the analysts, you get the people that know these teams best, giving you the best information on the top sports stories of the day. Locked On Sports Day brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If you've been following me throughout the series, especially on my YouTube, on my pregame YouTube shorts, where I give 3 keys to the game, I will do that again, even though I'm doing 3 keys here as well. You've heard me say repeatedly throughout this series, and I've had a few people say, man, you're right on about this. First quarters matter. I know we want to talk about the fourth quarter, and we want to talk about Paolo Banchero's decision to shoot that shot, or the foul that wasn't called on Evan Mobley, or the block on Franz Wagner, or Donovan Mitchell taking a shot too early in the shot clock. We could talk about all those things, but I will sit here and tell you the reason why the Magic lost that game, or one of the reasons the Magic lost game 5, was the final minute and a half of the first quarter. When Darius Garland got 2 pull-up threes in transition, there's that word again, transition, tempo, and then Karis LeVert got a backcourt steal that turned into a 3, a 9-2 run over the final minute 15, I believe, of the first quarter, turned a 3-point deficit into a 10-point deficit. And now suddenly the Magic were climbing uphill. The Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse crowd was into the game, and the Magic were playing catch-up on the road once again. Look, we've said this throughout the course of the season. Orlando was 22nd or 23rd in the league in first quarter net rating during the course of the season. It was a problem for them during the season. It wasn't just the Charlotte game. That's when we really pointed it out, but it's been a problem throughout the course of the season. The Magic have used their bench, which is still very reliable in this series, have used their bench to make up deficits. And that's been a formula that's worked. I don't think it's sustainable for them, but it's worked really well for them. They crushed third quarters. If we could say one thing, as bad as the Magic starting lineup is in the first quarter, I think the Magic starting lineup had a +4 net rating in the first quarter. The Magic starting lineup in the third quarter is like +12. Like they come out of the locker room guns a-blazing. They're really good in third quarters, as we saw in game 4. But I am very concerned about this problem for game 6, because as much as the Magic don't want to admit it, and Jalen Suggs said we got to be present, we can't worry about what happened in game 5. This is a new game. We got to be ready. We got to be about our details. We got to be about our work. We've got to go out and play. We got to treat this like a normal game. And as much as the Magic want to say, well, we had this do or die game against the Milwaukee Bucks. We came out at home, blew the doors off of them. Obviously, they came back in game 3. This is completely different. This is an elimination game. And I am very curious. I think the Magic will go down. If the Magic do lose, they will go down with a fight. I don't think a blowout is going to happen in this game. But in elimination games, you always worry about it, because if you get down, climbing out of that hole is that much more difficult. And then players, sometimes we've seen this a million times in elimination games. Players tend to try to do too much because you got to throw the kitchen sink at the wall to stay alive. First quarters have been bad for the Magic in this series. So I want to share the numbers here with you. In the first quarter of games this postseason, Orlando is scoring just 96 points per 100 possessions. That is not the worst in the league in the playoffs. There are worse teams in the first quarter, but they have a -16.9 net rating. Again, we're dealing with really small sample sizes. You're dealing with just one opponent. The Cavs have a 112.9 offensive rating in the first quarter. The bigger issue is this. Orlando has won just one first quarter in the 5 games that they played. There has been only one first quarter in these 5 games that was played within single digits, and that was game 4. Magic won game 3 by 10 points, if you're curious. These quarters set the tone for the game. And look, I don't need the Magic to win the first quarter. It's the old golf tournament adage. You can't win the tournament in the first quarter, but you can lose it. And the Magic in games 1, in games 2, and frankly, in game 5 as well, they didn't lose the game, obviously, because they came back. They made it a 5-point game in game 1. They made it they took the lead in game 5. So it wasn't the end of the world, but you can tell, like Paolo Banchero said after the game, he was tired. There was fatigue on that team having to climb up that hill. It is hard to climb uphill in this league. And so to be within 2, 3, 4 points is, especially on the road, is humongous. It's a big deal. And so the goal for the Magic in game 6 has to be to punch first. They've got to play from ahead. They've got to play with the lead, because my concern is that this team, if they fall behind again, could be, I don't think they panic because Jamal Mosley won't let them panic, but it's hard. It's tough. And frankly, being at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, you could feel the tension in the air. Every time the Magic made a run to take the lead and the Cavs called timeout to calm everyone down, you could feel the tension. And again, I do believe this. A more experienced team would have put the knife through their heart and finish it, and we'd be looking at a game 6 where the Magic have a very good chance of winning. Cleveland is now the one with that power. Cleveland's now the one with the ability to really put a dagger through this team's heart. And yes, they know they got trounced in games 3 and 4, but those games are in the past. And the Magic know they're good at home, and there's a lot of confidence. I think there is a lot of belief heading into game 6 because they know the Kia Center is their fortress, is the fortress for their kingdom on the rise. But you just don't know. You don't know how a team is going to react to an elimination game like this, and especially a young team that hasn't done this before. And so the goal for the Magic, and obviously they've got to work for it, it's not going to be handed to them. The goal for the Magic is to make this as easy as possible. Look what Indiana did. Look what Indiana did against Milwaukee on Thursday night. Indiana in that same position. If Milwaukee gets that game, all of a sudden it feels like the Bucks are winning. And Indiana went out there, had a big first quarter, put the Bucks down, and never let them get back up. That game was pretty, wasn't over after one quarter, but playing with the lead, especially at home, that momentum just builds. That energy just builds. And look, we'll talk about what you guys need to do at the Kia Center tonight here coming up in a minute. And being at home is going to help this team if they do fall behind. But if the Magic want to have that last laugh, if the Magic want to send this game back to Cleveland, it starts with them punching first. It starts with the Magic laying it in, getting the job done. It starts with the Magic completely doing what they have to do to win. That's the truth of things. If the Magic fall behind, again, if the Magic have another bad start, it's not that panic's going to set in. I really don't think this team's going to panic. I am expecting a close game. Like I am expecting another 50-50 game. This series has been due for 50-50 games. We saw one Tuesday night in Game 5. I think we will see another one here in Game 6. So we got to be ready for that. And we got to execute and all that stuff. But the Magic have to be the ones in control. Their clutch record has been built on them having the lead. I really cannot recall a moment when they were down by 5 with 4 minutes to go and they came back and won. That's just not how they're designed. And their clutch stats suggest they're just better defensively than offensively in clutch moments, which is what you expect. And so this is a team that has to play from ahead. This is a team that has to have the lead. And if they want to have another rollicking time, if they want to have another big confidence-boosting win, if they want to build that momentum to get to Game 7, it has to start at the tip. And if the Cavs take that lead, if the Cavs build another double-digit lead, it's not that the Magic can't come back. It's just that it becomes really, really hard to. Deep breaths, everyone. We're going to take one more break, and we'll chat a little bit about what the energy in the Kia Center will mean for the Orlando Magic. We'll talk about that coming up here in just a moment. But first, it's time for a quick word from our friends over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With more than 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. I want to first start here as we close the show and give the final key to how the Magic win Game 6. The Kia Center for Games 3 and 4 of this series are frankly the loudest I have ever heard that building for a Magic game. That's the truth of it. And the noise and the energy in that building rivals the two moments that I think were loudest, or at least were the loudest that I was present for. And I'll reveal my guilty pleasure here. I think the loudest I've ever heard that building is when AJ Styles premiered at the Royal Rumble. And I think the next loudest was booing Roman Reigns after he beat The Undertaker on the Raw after WrestleMania. Best promo of all time, by the way, from our tribal chief, or yet to be tribal chief at the time. That energy was real. That momentum was real. The confidence it gave this Magic team was real. And obviously, Orlando is going to have to find a way to win on the road to win this series. They needed Game 5. They needed Game 1. They'll need Game 7 now. They will have to find that energy on the road, but they have it at home. There is supreme confidence when they play between those lines and on that court, on that pinstripe court at the Kia Center. This team truly believes in what is possible and what they can do on their home floor. And that is a credit to them. Obviously, you got to start with the players, but it's a credit to the energy the home crowd gives them. And look, I will fully, I don't know if it was portrayed through the television screen. Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse was tense. That building was tense. They were scared that they were about to watch their final game of the season. And I will say this. The Magic will not echo that energy, because I think all of us Magic fans and all of us who've watched the Magic understand this team has exceeded so many expectations. They've set the table so much for what's going to come. There's going to be appreciation. Should the Magic lose, this team will get the standing ovation it deserves. And I'm glad that we're going to get one more game at the Kia Center to celebrate this. It'll be the last game on Bally Sports Florida as well. So shout out to our friends at Bally Sports Florida, David Steele, Jeff Turner, Dante Marcatelli, Kendra Douglas, the whole crew, Ryan Bass, the whole crew. This game is going to be about the energy you give them, because there are going to be hard moments in this game. Jared Allen is expected to play after he missed game 5 with the rib contusion. Gary Harris is truly questionable. He went through walkthrough, was on the floor doing the grounding exercises after the walkthrough, after the practice today. I don't know if that's a sign of anything or not. The Magic are going to need every ounce of energy they have to win this game. They have gone through it. They're fighting it. And like I said, they cannot fight uphill in this one. Ultimately, though, the crowd is the wind behind them. It gives them a tailwind. So if they do fall behind, don't lose the faith, because your energy can push them ahead. If they get up, bring that noise, bring that energy, because it can turn a close game into a blowout. Now, let's talk prediction. I do think this is going to be a close game. It's not that Cleveland has figured out the Magic or anything like that. It's still that this is, as much as the Magic don't want to admit it, this is still a young team that makes a lot of mistakes. And Cleveland has won the games when they take advantage of those mistakes. When they get points off turnovers, when they get some open threes, when they hit threes off of offensive rebounds. That was games 1 and 2. Game 5 was the transition points and the tempo that I talked about. The Magic have to find a way to limit their mistakes. And unfortunately, this team is still not precise on that front. And that ultimately could cost them the series. Like, to be completely honest, it can be something that small. And we've talked a lot about it, how the margin between winning and losing is just extremely small. That's the truth of it. But in a series that is this tight, I do believe the crowd can make the difference. I do believe that they can. Now, Cleveland has found their fight again. Orlando had a chance to maybe take that away from them in game 5 after they lost it in game 3 and 4. Cleveland has their fight again. And, among the many keys that we have to look at in this series, the Magic have to shut Darius Garland back down. Letting Darius Garland go, he had 17 of his 23 points in the first quarter. Letting Darius Garland get going is very bad news for the Magic. Because they can handle Donovan Mitchell having a big game and slowing him down and isolating him. But if Darius Garland is aggressive and they have 2 guys who can attack the basket and draw defenders to them, that becomes the problem. Because Cleveland can spread the floor, and taking George Niang and putting Marcus Morris in the rotation was a great move by JB Bickerstaff. A veteran just made comfortable shots, and the Magic were happy letting him shoot, and he burned them. Evan Mobley played his best game of the series in game 5. After the Magic found some room to attack him and engage him in ways that made him a little bit uncomfortable. This game is going to be a war. It's going to test everything that this Magic team has and everything that this Magic team is about. When things get hard with so much on the line, are the Magic going to crack? My guess is they won't. But that still may not be enough, because this is going to be a close game. This is going to be a tight one. This is going to be a battle for 48 minutes. And that's why the energy from the crowd, the energy from being at home, That's why there is home court advantage, because that can be enough to tip the scales. I think it was part of why Cleveland won, because all that tension went away once that crowd smelled they had a chance to win. Once that crowd sniffed out, Orlando isn't going to put this away. Kia Center crowd, the Magic fans at Kia Center, you guys need to have the same thirst for blood. When the Magic get in the lead, know that your energy makes that lead grow. The Magic have to do the work. Obviously, the team on the court has to get the job done. But it's going to be a battle for 48 minutes. So be ready, because this one is going to come down to the wire. I expect this game, and I expect Game 7, if we get there, to be extremely close affairs once again. I want to thank you for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Of course, find me on Twitter at @PhilipRR_OMD. Subscribe to the podcast and Apple Podcasts, which you're tuning in Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all of them. It's on podcast to your podcast-enabled listening device. For latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can, of course, find us there on Twitter at @OMagicDaily. And be sure to check out my Patreon page, the Orlando Magic Hub, for even more Orlando Magic content. You can find that at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. Now that you're done listening to us, be sure to check out the Locked On Sports Day 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. That's going to do it for me today. We will be back tomorrow to break down Game 6, win or lose. Until then, for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rossman-Reich. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.